The Autistic Culture Podcast Network, the sound of autistic culture. ATPN.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's Walmart,
and jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
Welcome back to Mindful Mondays. I'm your host, Ashley Dupuy, and this is your gentle weekly pause, a place to ease the rush, tenderize what feels sharp, and step into your week with presence and purpose, right here on the Neurodivergent Experience podcast. So whether you're neurodivergent, highly sensitive, or just drawn to the mysteries of consciousness and transformation, you belong here completely. This is a space where your sensitivity isn't something to overcome. It's woven into your deepest wisdom. And today's episode comes in honor of World Sound Healing Day, which we marked on the 14th of February. And it got me thinking deeply about just how powerful sound really is for the neurodivergent brain and body. The good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So we're going to explore music and why melody and rhythm likely predate spoken language in human history. Rhythm and dancing as emotional expression, especially for those of us with alexithymia. Binaural beats and brainwave states. Singing and humming. Vibrations, sound therapy, and ASMR. And then we'll turn toward some of the more challenging territory. Misophonia. Loud noises that feel like they rip holes into your soul. Tinnitus, musical ear syndrome, and the cocktail party effect. And as always, everything we talk about today will be grounded in neuroscience and lived neurodivergent experience. We'll weave in insights from Dr. Andrew Huberman's fascinating work on hearing and the brain, author James Nestor on the benefits of humming, and Dr. Daniel Allman on music and brain health. So by the end of today's episode, my hope is that you'll feel more agency around sound, not just as something that happens to you, but as tools you can use to support your nervous system, process emotions, and find moments of regulation and joy, even if you're deeply sensitive to sound, as I am. And we'll close, as always, with a guided practice. And if you're able to, try and listen to today's guided practice with headphones. Why? Well, keep listening and you'll find out. So let me start with something that has always fascinated me. Some of the greatest minds in neuroscience and anthropology have pieced together that music, rhythm, and dancing likely predate spoken language in human history. So we were making melodies and moving to it long before we had words to name what we felt. And this is why, for so many of us who are neurodivergent, especially those of us with alexithymia, where putting emotions into words feels like trying to describe color to someone who's never seen it. Exploring emotions through music, rhythm, and dancing is one of the most effective ways to express yourself, to process what you're carrying, and to move through it. It is the most ancient part of being human. And I want to share something deeply personal with you. I can remember the moment I first found out I was autistic. It was later on in the day, and I had been navigating a very complex web of emotions after learning I was autistic. And I remember I was alone at home, and suddenly I felt this overwhelming need to move my body. There was a song playing, and the melody and rhythm of it just grabbed me. And I turned the volume up really loud. And I began to dance in my living room, moving my arms and hands in ways that I didn't even know what I was doing, but I could feel it. This complex wave of relief and joy and celebration pouring out of me. I felt ecstatic to finally express myself in this amazing way. And it would have looked weird if anyone had been watching. Flailing arms and unusual movements. And yet, after a whole lifetime of feeling weird, of being the one who didn't fit, suddenly I felt celebrated, acknowledged, seen. Not by anyone else, but by the ancient wordless part of me that just knew. And this is something I invite my clients to do all the time. If you don't have a creative outlet already, I encourage you to listen to your favorite music. And even better, move your body to it. And even better still, do it daily. Have kitchen discos in the morning. Or at the end of the day, take yourself to your bedroom, light a candle, put on a favorite song, and let your body move however it wants to move. This is your moment to connect to the most ancient parts of the human experience. It's creative and it's somatic. Somatic work is using the body to regulate the nervous system, to signal safety. And allowing your body to move how it wants to rhythm does exactly that. So what actually happens to our bodies and brains when we listen to music? Well, it's absolutely incredible. We basically become an instrument ourselves. Sound waves enter through the ears, and the brain processes them. And we start to vibrate internally. And our heart rate variability increases, and that's a good thing. It means more flexibility and resilience in your nervous system. And breathing patterns shift and deepen. We feel connected. It's a full body, full brain experience. And what type of music? Well, anything you love. Any music that genuinely moves you is brilliant for your brain. Now that said, Dr. Daniel Amen, who is an expert on healthy brains and also an expert on ADHD, he points to research showing that country music often lights up the brain in particularly helpful ways. Steady patterns, emotional resonance without chaos. But don't worry if country isn't your thing. Just listening to music that you love works beautifully. Your dopamine flows and your focus steadies. And when I'm working with a client carrying really deep and dark, complex emotions, this could be grief or PTSD, I often recommend finding pieces of classical music that resonate. Classical music is such a journey. There's darkness and light and everything in between. And certain tones and chord changes can convey really nuanced emotions that language just can't do. It's like the music holds space for what words can't name. And here's something that really blows my mind. Researchers are even exploring whether music might be its own form of consciousness. How cool is that? And I love to imagine the different notes that make up a melody as the different hormones and neurochemicals and neuromodulators flowing through our bodies and brains. Dopamine lifting a crescendo, serotonin steadying the baseline, and oxytocin weaving through the harmonies. Your life? It is a symphony. It's not one flat note, but a rich orchestra of highs and lows, discords and resolutions. And all those parts of you, the intensity, the sensitivity, the neurodivergent wiring that feels everything so deeply, they're not flaws. They're the instruments, beautifully tuned, creating the symphony of your life. And for neurodivergent nervous systems especially, music reminds us we contain multitudes, and that's not chaos. It's music. And singing is also incredibly healthy for us. When we sing, we're extending our out-breath, which is a direct signal of safety to the nervous system. And the vibrations in your mouth, They help to activate the vagus nerve, turning on your parasympathetic rest and digest system. Singing is a wonderful way to express yourself, a beautiful creative endeavor. And for many neurodivergent beings, it's a form of stimming that not only regulates, but also feels good in the soul. And humming. Humming is amazing for the body. Research shows that humming increases nitric oxide in the nasal passages by up to 15 times. And author James Nestor talks about this beautifully in his work on breath. Nitric oxide opens up your airways, supports circulation, and fights inflammation. It's like a little pharmacy in your sinuses. And you can try it now if you like. Inhale gently through your nose and do a hum on the exhale. Feel that buzz? And speaking of vibrations, tools like vibration plates can help move your lymphatic system. That's your body's cellular waste disposal, which has no pump and relies entirely on movement. And for those with chronic fatigue or inflammation, this can be a gentle way to support detox and overall health. And then we have binaural beats, which are absolutely amazing. Now, to experience the magic of binaural beats, you need to be wearing headphones, because one slightly different beat frequency is played in each ear. And your brain takes the difference between the two and creates a third perceived beat. You are essentially curating your brainwave state. So there are different brainwave states depending on your level of alertness. And the different types of binaural beats can help you achieve these brainwave states. So let's take a look at the different states. First, we have delta. This is for deep sleep and healing. And this was a game changer for me when I had chronic insomnia. Delta binaural beats were one of the very first things that actually began to shift my sleep after years of struggling. Then we have theta, the truly magical brainwave state. This is where we land in hypnosis and yoga nidra and deep meditation. It's this beautiful paradox of deep focus and deep rest. And those two states don't normally go together. Normally, deep rest means we're drifting towards sleep. But in theta, we stay awake. And it's here that our brains are most plastic and new neural pathways can take root. Then we have alpha. This is where we are relaxed but alert, perfect for learning and creativity. Then there's beta. This is active focus and problem solving. And then there is gamma. This is peak cognition, insight, and complex processing. And I am so grateful to call Alexander Voloshin of Healing Meditation Music a friend. He is the composer behind all the music you hear on Mindful Mondays during our guided practices. He runs his studio out of Slovenia, creating binaural beats and other healing soundscapes. And we did a fascinating episode together on my other podcast, Tenacious Bee, which is relaunching soon, and I can't wait to share more about that soon. But in our episode together, Alexander explained binaural beats and their healing potential far better than I ever could. And he also weaves in solfeggio frequencies. Those are ancient tunings from much earlier in human history. Make sure to search Healing Meditation Music. His work is extraordinary. And like myself, you can also find Alexander's healing soundscapes on Insight Timer. All of my guided practices and courses on Insight Timer feature Alexander's music, and occasionally we collaborate together live on Insight Timer, with him playing from his studio in Slovenia and me in my studio here on the Isle of Man, taking people through guided meditations and yoga nidras, and it's always a really special event. Make sure to check Insight Timer regularly for these live events that happen throughout the year. And of course, if we're talking about sound and healing, we have to mention ASMR. autonomous sensory meridian response. ASMR is a relatively recent phenomenon, as something we seek out and consume, but it's always been part of the human experience. It's that tingling, deeply relaxing response some people get from specific sounds, like whispers, gentle tapping, page turning, tap, tap, tap. Did you feel a tingle down your spine or your scalp? That is ASMR. And neuroscience shows it can release oxytocin and measurably lower heart rate, profoundly calming for many. Not everyone loves it, and that's fine, especially if you're sound sensitive. But for those who do, it's regulation gold. And let's not overlook some of the simpler sounds in life. The sound of laughter bubbling up spontaneously, a babbling brook, ocean waves rolling in. Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about how pink noise, like gentle waves or rain, can act as a sort of sound blanket for the brain, drowning intrusive thoughts or tinnitus, while supporting dopamine and focus. These are nervous system soothers available to all of us. Okay, so now we've talked about the good. Now let's look at some of the bad. Misophonia is incredibly common in the neurodivergent landscape. And to those who haven't experienced it, it can sound like something funny. Chewing, breathing, pen tapping, triggering rage or panic. But I assure you, it is anything but funny to those living with it. It can completely destabilize you. And like so many things, misophonia gets worse the more dysregulated we are. The more activated your nervous system, the more your threat detection ramps up, and your hearing literally changes. You perceive volume and pitch differently. Sounds feel louder, more piercing. That's not overreacting. Your system is overprotecting. The best way forward? Nervous system regulation. Make sure to check out episodes 9 through 12 and our January deep dive in episode 19 for more on how to regulate your nervous system. When you're more grounded, these triggers lose some of their power. And you can also find more regulating practices over on Insight Timer as well. Okay, so we've looked at the good and the bad. How about the ugly? Loud noises, crowded restaurants, fireworks, car backfires, horns honking. They can make you jump right out of your skin. Now, I've always been very jumpy with loud noises, and I've described it like this. It feels like somebody just ripped a hole into my soul. It doesn't just hurt your ears. It hurts your whole body. It is so destabilizing. And there's another layer to this in loud places like restaurants, the cocktail party effect. Most people can magically tune into one conversation amid clinking glasses and laughter and chatter. Their brains filter the noise, zeroing in on a single voice. It's selective auditory attention at its finest. But for many of us who are neurodivergent or highly sensitive, that filtering fails. Conversations blur into a wall of sound. You catch fragments and miss the thread, and suddenly you're nodding along, lost and exhausted. And this isn't poor listening. Your auditory processing and pattern separation just work differently, especially when already sensory loaded. And I experience this personally all the time. Happy hours become overwhelming puzzles. The good news? Regulation helps here too. Headphones or earplugs with targeted noise cancellation, or just choosing quieter spots, honor your wiring without shame. It's not a flaw. It's your brain prioritizing signal over noise in its own way. And it's important to mention here, the answer is not exposure therapy. It's regulating your baseline. The more present and regulated you are, the less jumpy you will feel. And I've been working diligently on my nervous system for over 7 years now, and I've improved immensely and continue to improve, even with dips along the way. Still headed in the right direction, but I will be honest, I am still quite jumpy. Not just with jump scares, but everyday loudness. That said, I am much better than I used to be. It no longer feels like a hole ripped into the very fabric of my being. So if you are suffering with this, misophonia or not tolerating loud, crowded spaces, please know these aren't things for exposure therapy. Work on regulation. Episodes 9 through 12 and episode 19 are your starting place. You'll begin to feel more grounded and more stable. And I also have a 14-day regulation mastery course over on Insight Timer, which will give you all the tools you need to start learning how to become a master at regulating your own state. And if we're talking about sound, of course, we need to talk about tinnitus. It's a really interesting phenomenon I've dealt with personally for a very long time. And there are different types. There is tinnitus due to hearing loss, which has fewer options for change. But if yours is stress-related or otherwise functional, your chances of improvement increase dramatically. And again, the best way to help with tinnitus is nervous system regulation. Remember, high alert changes our hearing. We notice tones and pitches we wouldn't otherwise. And this is where the RAS from last week's episode comes in. Your brain filters reality, showing more of what you focus on. Think of being back in school and you're taking a test, and there's a clock ticking in the room. Tick, tick, tick. And once you're fully engrossed in the test, you don't hear it anymore. This is your brain deleting and distorting reality, highlighting just a tiny snippet. And this is why hypnotherapy can work wonders for tinnitus. And I have an amazing story about this. I mentioned Phil Quirk last week, my NLP and hypnotherapy trainer. And during my master practitioner course, he did a demo of hypnotherapy on me in front of the other students. And I hadn't mentioned my tinnitus to him. He just did a generic hypnotherapy, asking my unconscious to sort anything it was ready to fix. And that evening, I walked into my empty house. No radio, no voices, just silence. And silence is where tinnitus usually screams loudest. And it hit me. Oh my gosh, my tinnitus is gone. I hadn't told him about the tinnitus. We hadn't discussed it. But my unconscious had just handled it, and it blew my mind. And I have since helped numerous clients with their tinnitus. And speaking of the RAS and how our brains fill in gaps with sound, there's another fascinating phenomenon called musical ear syndrome. And this isn't something wrong with your brain. It is tied to hearing loss, where the auditory cortex gets hypersensitive and starts generating phantom music or voices to fill the sensory gaps. And it tends to happen most when you are A, stressed and activated, and B, around white noise at higher volumes, like a loud fan. The brain tries to make connections that aren't there, and suddenly you're hearing faint recorded music playing in the distance at a very, very low level. And I experienced this myself during a time of ongoing relational trauma. This was before I ever knew that musical ear syndrome was a thing. I could hear what I thought was a radio station coming from my fan heater, clear as day, but impossible. And I thought I was going mad. Turns out it's quite common. The fan's roar creates the perfect blank canvas for the brain to project tunes onto. And for neurodivergent beings, this can feel extra alarming. Our pattern-seeking brains and heightened stress responses make us prone to these kind of auditory fills. But it's not madness. It's the brain compensating creatively, often when hearing input is low or threat is high. And regulation helps here too. Lowering activation quiets the phantom orchestra. Fascinating how the RAS, once again, shows us more of what we're tuned into. And Dr. Andrew Huberman has some fascinating episodes on sound on his Huberman Lab podcast. Hearing is one of our most sensitive, fastest systems, tightly linked to alertness, balance, and learning. A sudden loud blast is a pure threat cue wired deep in the brainstem, which is why they hit neurodivergent nervous systems so hard, because we're often closer to activation already. But here's the empowerment. Sound is a lever. Music can help you dance through your alexithymia. Binaural beats can guide brainwaves. Humming opens airways. Even sensitivity becomes wisdom. You feel vibrations others miss. So my hope is that you'll explore sound with curiosity, even if you're sensitive to it like me. Keep that curiosity, focus on regulation, and start with some gentle experimentation with the wonder of sound and vibrations. And if you're doing the 6-week gratitude challenge we started last episode, 2 new gratitude points daily to retrain your RAS, consider adding a sound moment and notice how this gently widens the filter of your lived experience. And before we ease into today's guided practice, here's your microdosing meaning invitation. Can you make a commitment to take just 10 minutes each day to intentionally listen to music you love and let your body move however it wants to? No choreography, no judgment. Kitchen disco, bedroom sway, gentle arm waves, whatever emerges. It might seem simple, almost too easy, but this ancient practice, older than words, can help you process and move through emotions in ways you didn't even know you needed. That is microdosing meaning. A tiny daily ritual that reminds your nervous system, you know how to feel. You know how to flow. And if you are currently driving or operating heavy machinery, please ensure to pause the recording now until you can safely come back into stillness. And if you are able to, put on your headphones or earbuds now so that you can truly experience the wonder of binaural beats. And just find a comfortable position, either seated or lying down, ensuring you are nice and warm and fully supported. Whenever you're ready, feel free to gently close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and hum on the way out. Good, that's right. And again, deep breath in and hum on the way out. You are currently listening to Binaural Beats from Alexander Voloshin of Healing Meditation Music. Today's track is one of my favorites of his, called God Frequency Theta Waves. This track is designed to gently support your brain in entering a theta state. That beautiful space between wakefulness and dreaming. A place where insight softens in. Where the nervous system begins to reorganize itself. Where healing often happens quietly, without effort. You don't need to do anything. Just allow. Let the sound move through you. And notice the chord changes. how certain tones create a sense of longing, anticipation, subtle tension. And then notice the melody of release, of resolution, a soft landing. And pay attention to what happens in your body. Does your breath change? Does your chest soften? Does your jaw unclench? Does something inside you feel remembered? You might notice yearning. You might notice emotion. You might notice nothing at all. And all of that is welcome. This is not about achieving a state. It's about observing what unfolds when you let sound guide the nervous system. And notice how the waves of sound mirror the waves of your own internal world, rising and falling, expanding and settling. And your mind may drift. That's natural in theta. Just gently return to the sound. Let it carry you. Let it recalibrate you. Let it remind your beautifully sensitive brain that regulation doesn't always come from effort. Sometimes it comes from resonance. And as we begin to draw today's practice to a close, notice where you are now compared to when we began. Is there more space? More softness? More coherence? And gently deepen your breath. And begin to bring small movements into your fingers and toes. when you're ready, and not a moment before, feel free to gently open your eyes. You've just given your nervous system something ancient and intelligent. You have collaborated with sound. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. In a world that is loud, fast, and often overwhelming, especially for sensitive and neurodivergent nervous systems, choosing to pause and explore something as subtle and powerful as sound is no small thing. So whether you dance in your kitchen this week, experiment with humming, explore binaural beats, or simply listen with a little more curiosity, you're already beginning to shift your relationship with sound. And that shift matters. And if you'd like to go deeper into these practices, you can find more of my meditations and nervous system work over on Insight Timer. Just search for Ashley Dupuy. That's Dupuy. There you will find longer theta journeys, breathwork sessions, and gentle regulation practices you can return to anytime you need steadiness. And next week is a special one. We'll be marking 6 months of Mindful Mondays. Half a year of pausing together, exploring the neuroscience of neurodivergence, and learning how to work with our beautifully complex minds rather than against them. And I'll be sharing some of the most powerful moments and insights from these past 6 months. The themes that resonated most, the practices that landed deeply, and the threads that have quietly woven this series together. If you've been here from the beginning, it's a chance to reflect. And if you're newer, it's a beautiful way to catch the essence of what we've been building. Until then, be gentle with your nervous system and be curious about what you're tuning into. And remember, we are all just walking each other home.
Who knew Walmart Business could help a thriving office motivate their employees? Pamela knew. She uses Walmart Business to get the assortment of items her team needs at the prices she loves.
As the office manager, it's my job to make sure my team stays on top of their game. I can get the basics like cleaning supplies and paper towels, but what they really care about, snacks.
And she can get everything they need when they need it.
Greg loves wheat crackers, Brenda craves sour candy, and Max, oh boy, he needs protein bars and milk and applesauce
It's
and
Walmart,
jerky.
built for your business. Who knew?
Thanks for listening. Support autistic-led media through Autistic Culture Plus and enjoy bonus content, early episodes, and ad-free listening. Visit autisticculture.supercast.com to learn more.